Today I'll be unpacking Beccacece's Ecuador list to take on Venezuela and Chile. I'll be going over what I think is good, okay, not so good, and the why is he even on the list. Be sure to stick around to see if you share the same opinion as I do, and at the end I'll share with you my predictions for all the Matchday 13 South American qualifier games. Starting off Beccacece's list, we have goalkeepers, the first one being Galindez, who is pretty self-explanatory and not much needs to be said, will obviously be considered a good call-up. Also a good call-up is Cabezas, a player that has earned his call-up, starting for Nacional, making great saves. Just like our striker situation, we can't say we have a current reliable under 30 senior team goalkeeper, so we have to keep trying new names. We also have Ramirez, who is going to fall under my why is he even called up. Unreliable, doesn't automatically start for Independiente. His judgment has not been the best. Let's remember that he also not too long ago made a big mistake versus Venezuela away. Isn't considered a young prospect anymore. I guess Beccacece didn't watch the Católica game, and I really hope that Galindez doesn't get injured or red carded. Moving on to the defenders that Beccacece called up. First one we have is Pervis Estupiñán, who is in the best form he's been all season, scoring with Brighton versus Manchester City, an automatic good call up, no questions there. We also have Felix Torres, who I had on my list, and now is coming back strong with Corinthians, scoring versus Barcelona and regaining the confidence with his manager at Corinthians. With Piero suspended for the first game, he is definitely considered a good call-up. We also have Pacho, who has been putting in that work with PSG. We've all seen it. Definitely a good call-up as well. Ordóñez gave us a little scare the other day versus Aston Villa when he got subbed off. Luckily, his club announced his call-up before the national team did. We all know he's a definite good call-up. Arriaga isn't someone that I had on my own list, but I wasn't surprised to see him on the final list. He did well versus Corinthians. Like his manager Castillo said, they suffered from set pieces, and that was very clear. Either way, it's interesting to see his move back to Ecuador actually benefited his career. I wasn't so sure that was going to happen, so I'll put him on the okay section. Lastly, for Beccacece's defenders list, we have Cristian Ramirez, the ideal backup for Estupiñán if he gets injured or gets sent off or whatever. We haven't seen him in action recently for Ecuador that much. I'm mainly living on his past Ecuador performances, and he's another player that I'll add on the okay section for this list. Now moving on to the longest part of the list, which is the midfielders. We have Medina, who is a player that I had on my own list, mainly because he is the next biggest thing when it comes to left wing backs. When you have players like Ramirez and Pervis as backups, having him there to just gain experience with the national team is good. So, I mean, he's not a key player just yet, but I'll have him on my okay section. The next two midfielders I considered good call-ups. You have Franco, who has turned into a key player for us. What he offers this national team, what he's capable of, was evident versus Brazil. Definitely considered a good call-up, and without too much explanation, you have Moises Caicedo, another good call-up for Ecuador. Mendez isn't someone that I had on my own list, but many seem to be happy he's on the list, I guess, because of his recent Independiente performance, and I didn't really watch the game, so I can't say much about it. Like Arriaga, it seems like the move back to Ecuador benefited his career, so I hope this continues, especially now that they have Libertadores games coming up. So I'll put him on the okay section for now. Vite is in one of the best moments of his career, having a fantastic start to his MLS season with one of the best, if not the best teams in the season so far. He scores for them, he assists for them, and that's exactly what we need as a center midfielder for Ecuador, so he's definitely a good call-up. Yeboah is still considered a good call-up for me, even though he is a bench player in Italy. We all know what he can do on the field, and not only that, he has that confidence mentality that this team needs. Kendry Páez is another surprise name we saw on the list. Hasn't had any competitive game minutes this 2025, has been training for Chelsea. Becca mentioned how he has been regularly updated about his progress in London, so I wouldn't be surprised that if his call-up had been well established some time ago. Even with all that being said, I still find it hard to justify his senior call-up, especially since he recently had not such a good performance with the under-20, so Páez is going to go on the why is he even on the list section. We also have Arroyo, who I think I'll put as an okay player for right now. His move to Turkey has really set the bar high for him. He did score on his second game with the club, and fans are expecting a lot from him. I just hope that they give him patience and realize that he needs time to adapt. He isn't key for this Ecuador team yet, so that's why I'll keep him on the okay section. To me, Denny Castillo has earned his call up to the national team, regularly playing in the Danish league and starting 7 out of 8 Europa League matches. In addition, for being a young Ecuadorian in his position, he's a no-brainer good call-up. Corozo is considered an okay player for me. Like I mentioned in my previous video, we haven't had convincing victories in Quito, and having a player like him who can cause something out of nothing, I would have on my team any day of the week. I don't think he would start, but in those situations where you have 20 to 25 minutes left and you're struggling to score, I would definitely throw him in there. Lastly, to finish off Beccacece's midfield, we have Gonzalo Plata, which not much needs to be said. Has been A1 for club, has been A1 for country, so is definitely considered a good call-up. To finish off Beccacece's list, we have strikers, and I'm happy to see Mercado on the list. Even though he hasn't had a big impact for the national team, he is key for his club in Portugal. His biggest attributes are his speed, and he has a powerful shot. The only thing we need is for Beccacece to find a way to get that out of him in the games, especially with no Sarmiento on the list. To me, this is going to be considered a good call-up with the current striker crisis we have, and it is at the moment the best we have, making him a good call-up. And at this point, I really hope that this doesn't turn into a Paolo Guerrero in Peru situation with him. The last player on Beccacese's list is Kevin Rodriguez. I didn't have him on my own list. Very low playing time with his club, has only scored 1 goal this season so far. And don't get me wrong, I am a big advocate for Rodriguez, but in this case, I'd rather have Anderson Julio. And if it weren't for our striker crisis, I would put him on the why is he even on the list section. But since we are having a huge striker problem, I'm going to put him under the not good section. In the end, this list isn't missing any of the key figures like Piero, Caicedo, Pacho, but I also think that we missed out on other players that could have potentially deserved a call-up, like Julio. But one thing is for sure is that Beccacece has made it clear many times that he prioritizes a good atmosphere, a good mental well-being off the field. And one thing that he likes to look at is players that contribute to that. So that is definitely something that is key for him when he's making these call-ups. Finally, to end off with my predictions for Matchday 13. First, we have Paraguay versus Chile. I think Paraguay is going to win. Alfaro has made this Paraguay team very dangerous, while Gareca has been highly criticized in Chile. Brazil versus Colombia. I think we should get a tie. Brazil hasn't been as strong as they normally are, and Colombia hasn't been as good since the Copa America final. Now with Peru versus Bolivia, this is another tie that I'm predicting. Peru is relying on the same formula as always, but that's exactly why they've been at the bottom of the table. So, I mean, if you're going to keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. And Bolivia has been on the rise, especially since their win in Chile. With the upcoming Ecuador versus Venezuela game, I'm not gonna give my prediction on that just yet. I'm planning to make a video about it, so be sure to stick around for that. For the Uruguay versus Argentina game, I actually predict another tie for this one. Uruguay is starting to come back from their goal drought, scoring a couple of goals last couple Uruguay games. But the only thing that makes it difficult is that Argentina is always going to be tough, home or away. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button and subscribe, and make sure to leave a comment letting me know what you think about Beccacece's call-up list. Do you agree with the questionable call-ups, or do you think someone is missing on his list?